User accounts let you control who can log in, view, or modify data in your SCALE.sdm system. This video teaches you how to manage user accounts. First, you'll learn how to create a new user account. And second, you'll learn how to assign the user to roles, such as contributor, admin, or project manager. By assigning roles, you essentially give the user permission to access those areas of the system that are relevant for their own specific job and tasks. Before we get started, keep in mind that user accounts contain sensitive personal information such as names and email addresses. Because of this, user accounts can only be managed by someone whose account has been marked as a so-called super user or as staff. For example, that might be the IT administrator who initially installed the application, or it might be someone else in your company who has very comprehensive permissions. Okay, let's get started. Navigate to Configuration, User Management, Users. If your system already contains any existing user accounts, then you'll see them listed here. Click on New to create a new user account. One thing you'll notice right away is this chip here, which either says internal or external. Internal means that information such as the username, email address, and company can be edited here manually. External means that the user information cannot be edited here because it comes directly from an external identity provider. In this example, I'm going to manually create an internal user, so the first thing I'll do is enter a username. This is the name that the user will log in with. And next, I'll enter a display name. This is the name that will be visible in several areas throughout the system. Finally, I'll enter the user's email address, and I'll specify the company and contractor, which indicates on whose behalf the user is acting. Okay, now let's continue with the next section. If you activate the user account here, then the user will be able to log in. So conversely, you can also deactivate an account to prevent a user from logging in. This is useful because it means that you don't need to delete old user accounts. You can simply deactivate them to prevent access. Be careful with these next two settings because they give the user account very comprehensive permissions. For most normal user accounts, these should be left unchecked. Next, open the drop-down list and select the disciplines that the user belongs to, for example, crashworthiness, fatigue, or pedestrian safety. You can think of disciplines like filters, which control the resources that the user will be able to see. So for example, if the user belongs to the discipline crashworthiness, then the user will only be able to access the presets, test cases, and other resources that are also relevant for crashworthiness. And finally, use this last option here if you want to fix the layout for a window width of 1280 pixels. Otherwise, select a fluid layout, or simply select None. This final area down here is where you'll grant the user permission to access various areas of the system and perform tasks that are relevant to their job. This is done by assigning the user to the appropriate groups, roles, and additional permissions. In the end, the user permissions are all added together. That means the user will be given all of the permissions included in the group, plus all the permissions included in the roles, plus any additional permissions specified. In this example, you'll notice that my system already contains a lot of different groups and roles. But what if these haven't been set up in your system yet? No problem. Let's backtrack a little bit and talk about what exactly roles and groups are and how you can configure them in your system. You can think of roles as the various jobs within your company. For example, admins, project managers, and contributors. Each job requires a certain set of permissions. For example, admins might need permission to create presets, system announcements, and manage other user accounts. Whereas a project manager might need permission to add new projects, create project milestones, and upload project documents. Let's create an example role in SCALE.sdm. This is done by navigating to Global Roles and clicking on New. First, give the role a name. And then expand the permission tree and select the individual permissions that are necessary for performing the role. If your role simply contains a very basic set of permissions and you want it to automatically be applied to all newly created users, then select this option here. Save your changes when you're finished, and then create any additional roles the same way. Once you've created roles, you can group them together as needed. For example, you could group roles together by project, or you could create groups for internal and external users. Let's create an example group. This is done by navigating to Groups and clicking on New. First, give the group a name. And then decide which users should be part of the group. Finally, decide which global roles should be assigned to the members of this group, and also which additional permissions should be assigned. Okay, that gives you a solid foundation for managing user accounts in your SCALE.sdm system. If you want to explore the topic further, be sure to check out our user manual. It provides you with further information, such as a list of all permissions, descriptions of what each permission does, and whether each permission is a so-called model permission or object permission.